And so, let's another one begin. Hello, I'm Joshua Hinkmeyer.
I'm Corey Klatt.
Lene Peterson.
Jared Holmgren.
And we're here today to talk to you about the amazing film Tin Drum, circa 1979. So, some of the things we're going to cover with you today are nationalism, romanticism, and our feelings experienced throughout the film. So, Corey, would you like to start us off with a little bit of the nationalism you saw in the film?
Yes. So nationalism is having a sense of pride in your country. And for nationalism, you have Uncle Jan, who's Polish, and he's very proud that he's Polish, very proud of his heritage. And then you have Albert, who's a German, more specifically a Nazi, and he is very proud that he's a Nazi too. And this later causes conflict in the movie when Uncle Jan goes to the Polish post office, and then they start fighting the Nazis there, and Uncle Jan dies with all these other Polish people in the post office. And then you also have the toy maker, who was Jewish as well, and that was another big thing with nationalism, is that he's proud to be Jewish, whereas
He died for it.
and he dies for it too, willingly dies for it because he's very proud of it.
I think some of the biggest images I see was when they held up the Star of David, like when everything was like burning around and that one guy was like, ah.
To show like pride of where they.
Yeah, it was really scary thing to think about. So romanticism is the literary, artistic movement where we're getting a little away from the scientific stuff and we're looking more at art, and we're holding art so high. The biggest things we see in the film were probably when the mom and the dad are playing, Oscar's mom and dad are playing the piano at the beginning. That song, all about the beautifulness of the nature and all that. Oscar playing the drum the entire movie is almost like trying to force that idea that he's artistically different than everybody else, and they allow him to do it. They don't mind that he plays the drum. A few people fight him against it, but for the most part, they just allow him to continue to play the drum. And then a big movement that changed that the romanticism into the nationalism Corey's talking about was when they took Beethoven's picture down and they put up Hitler's picture, and instead of the piano they put the radio down now. It really kind of swayed the idea. At first they were very much, the romanticism was so strong, and then the nationalism kind of took over, and that was what became more important as the film progressed.
Also, when he like joined in playing the drum
Ah,
towards the end of the.
yes.
He was like hiding himself, but like certain people saw him.
Yes, yes. It was very much trying to force those ideas. That the romanticism was a little less, nationalism was strong, but it was definitely there, and it was, you could see it. So, all right, we have a few things that should be interesting to discuss, though, that occurred in the film. What would you like to start with, Lene?
Forcing Oscar to eat the soup.
Oh my God. Corey, how'd you feel?
It was pretty gross, forcing it, like, you see the dad pee, or the dad spits in it, the kid pees in it, and they throw a bunch of frogs in. That was pretty gross, watching him eat the soup. I felt pretty uncomfortable during it. So.
Why did you?
Just because it's like you're raised growing up that like these things are gross or these things are dirty, so why like eat them or put it in your mouth or something like that. So
I almost, like, when I think about it, it makes me think of just like the most disgusting thing to do would be like to drink toilet water, and that's what I saw. And it necessarily wouldn't have been gross if like it was implied, but it was so much visual, and the like sounds of them like shoving it in his throat, and he's like.
And he was like gagging, and they kept trying to hold him.
Gagging, and it just made me cringe because the every time I hear a gagging sound, I want to throw up, and every time I think about people drinking pee, I want to throw up. Even though I've heard there's that joke that people always do. Well, it is the most sterile thing you can drink, but it's just the idea of drinking urine. I just like Corey said, you're raised against it. When you see animals even eat poop, your first thought is disgusting.
Mhm.
But at the same time, your animal's licking its butt all the time and licking your face, and you don't think about it. So, I mean, in reality, it's not too horrible, but it just, I don't know, just the way it was presented to me was just everything growing up that I was taught against, and what made me want to throw up was thinking about just the taste of it and how germy and gross that is. That's and I think that's what made me want to puke is the idea of the germs. Ugh.
Yeah. The visuals what got me, like, that just like put it clear into my head that if that were to happen to you, it's exactly how it would be, and just kind of just grossed me out.
And like, I think another big part is if he had done it voluntarily, we would have been like, ew, gross. But the fact that he was
Yeah.
forced to do it is almost like puts you in somebody's shoes. Like, if I were ever had to drink pee, it would have to be forced to do it. I
Yeah.
would never do that voluntarily. If he does it voluntarily, he's like, okay, now the guy's weird. But he's forced to do it. Now you're thinking about it, and you're like, ugh.
How would you feel if you were the person that forced him to do it?
I'd feel.
I wouldn't be able to do it because I think it's gross to begin with, and like
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to force someone else to do it.
But kids give other kids swirlies all the time.
Right.
Corey, his elementary school days, that's my school he lived up
Oh
to.
yeah, back in the day.
Watertown getting swirlies. Um, I'm I'm not gonna lie, my brother's given me a swirly once in my life, and I think that's part of the reason that I almost threw up. Like I turned around and I literally gasped because I can feel that sensation of just disgustingness. Dirty toilet, dirty pee, ew.
That's another thing, like that's what like cleans you out or whatever. So if you're
Yeah.
putting it right back into your system, like I don't know how it's
Nah.
even healthy for you for one. And like another thing that I thought of, like forcing him to do it. I'm sure you can relate, like working at the Y, and you see all those kids like the like trying to force something like that on some of them would, and you never know what their background like is either.
Mhm.
So if you had a bad background too, and then forcing them and
No, right. And another, and I guess we're also always talking about the pee, but that soup itself was all murky, and it had frogs and whatever else, and the spit. The spit was another thing I think we didn't really think about. I know that one. That's another aspect that just like you ever go to like hawk a loogie and it gets stuck in your mouth and it's the most disgusting feeling ever. I mean, nobody talks about it, but you know it's happened to you before, and you're like, ew, that was gross. That was another feeling I like got out of it. Plus, like, because the water was so murky, I'm like sitting there and I'm trying to picture how it would taste. Like, that idea, like when you see
your
something
perception of
murky
it.
and just yeah.
But that's another thing. You like talked about the spitting. Did you ever like share drinks with someone or whatever?
Yeah, with backwash, and you're like,
Right.
So there's like another thing though.
blah.
It's still gross, hey?
That would be different though than someone actually just coming up and
Hawking
spitting
up.
like right into that drink.
I know
That
that.
would be different than.
My brother, my oldest brother, when my middle brother would pick on him, he would hold him down and hawk a loogie into his mouth. And so he would stop picking on him. And I remember thinking, I will never mess with my older brother because that's the last thing in the world that I want. And then I saw the dad hawk a loogie into that soup, and I was just like,
That's what makes you picture things from what you've experienced.
yeah, it's definitely all past experience. Because I think if you're brought up and raised like, well, I don't even know if you were, even if you were in a less cleanly environment, that would still, would it still be gross? Do you think? Like if you were
If you're
brought
in
up in
like a
a
poor society.
third world country or something, would that image still be gross?
I think it honestly would be, well, but then again, like they eat whatever is.
They drink murky water.
And I'm sure they would eat frogs if
Yeah.
that's what was available
Right.
for
I've
them.
had fried frog.
I
It's
don't know, when you
delicious.
say that, I just picture like India, where like everybody goes and bathes in like the river, and then they like use the river to go to the bathroom, and then they're also drinking from that water. So that's like the same thing that.
So it's probably a standard that we just like the environment has kind of brought us to that.
Right.
We've had all these social norms, and they just broke all of them in that scene, and it's just.
I think we are like lucky to be where we're at as far as like advantage
Mhm.
over.
That's for sure. All right, what's the next one? What's the next? I
Let
kind
me
of want
think.
to throw up now.
Well, if we're gonna go to that, we might as well go to the horse head.
Oh, the horse head. Well, Corey, you brought it up, so we'll have you talk about the horse head to start us off.
The part where the guy's fishing, and I don't know if he caught the horse head or if he was
I think
using that to fish.
Yeah,
I think
it
that
was
was his
bait.
bait.
Okay, yeah, but
It attracted them.
that's just gross. Why would you use a dead horse head for bait? And then he catches all the eels and just gives them to Albert, and they eat them too.
Yeah.
That's disgusting.
See, I had no problem with it.
I think that was the
When I
worst part
watched it.
about it is that they saw him catch him and then they went and ate him right
Right.
after. It was
I
just,
feel like the worst part is seeing the dead horse because I love horses, and seeing the dead horse head
See,
was disturbing.
I personally had less like aversion to it because my uncle, like growing up in, or my first 5 years of life, it was in Oregon, and he used to use with chum to attract sharks on deep sea fishing, and chum is just basically rotten meat and fish in water, and I feel like that horse head was less disgusting for me than chum. So when
but chum is just mush. I mean, that was a horse's
I know, but
Right,
brain.
I
that
could
was a
I
so
could
clear
smell the
horse.
chum. No, that's the thing. I didn't smell the horse. If I was
Well,
probably
you
there,
were there. You
if I
probably
was there,
smelled
it'd be a
it.
lot different. But as I was watching it, I didn't feel.
So what if you were the woman that was made to eat the
Like, would you
she was
eat the
forced to
no?
eat?
If you knowingly saw that it was from a
If it
horse's
was
head,
cooked, yeah.
would you eat it?
If it was cooked, yeah.
I don't like eel, so that would even.
If it was
I like
fried or
horse.
cooked up, sure.
I couldn't do it.
I eat a lot of fish though, so.
I don't like fish to begin with.
Right. Neither do
that might
I.
be part of it too.
See, I thought that was even grosser than the soup part. Just that
Really?
he's
No
using a
way.
dead horse to catch fish.
Yeah.
And who knows
It's
how long
just
that horse had been dead
They
for
use
one.
true.
And then if the eel ate that,
It was
and
probably a sick
that
horse
means that
too.
you'll like.
Mhm.
They use rotten meat to catch everything else.
I eat beef.
I had less of an aversion to it. I was fine with it. I could see where people could, especially people that like already don't like fish. Like that had to have been
That was gross.
because it's just could you taste that fish taste when you were watching it? He
Yeah.
was like, it's pickled, you just eat it, it's good. And I felt that like.
And then what made her like she ate that, and then what just made her go on this fish crave or whatever that she eats
That
herself to death on fish.
that was weird.
That was weird. Yeah.
Was it because she was pregnant?
I don't know.
Because she didn't want to eat fish ever again, and then she went into the room and cried, and then the cousin went in there. Was it the pole? What's his name? Jan.
Yeah.
Jan went in there and then felt her up, which was weird.
Yeah.
And then she went back out
There's
and
a
then,
lot of that.
and then ate the fish. And he was like, "Do you want me to warm it up for you?" She just doesn't say anything. And then
No.
she just goes on a fish rampage.
And then she goes to like the market or whatever, and she's eating the raw fish. Just
Now see that part made me a little bit sickened because it was like just the bones and
just eating, the whole
like the
thing.
head. She just bit off the head, and I couldn't eat the head of a fish. That's
She was just letting it hang all out of her mouth too.
Yep,
Mhm.
and then like
Gross.
when she's like shoving it in her mouth, you just see the sticky, like just wet, and
Right.
and she's just
No.
slopping it into her mouth. That part was gross. I don't know about anybody else, but like when I see like people putting stuff in their mouth and it's just all down their hand, that sticky, like, wet feeling just makes, that sickens me.
Yeah.
I just, because, like,
But
every
it's like
time
a
I...
folk way for us because like we were taught manners.
Well, yeah, manners and, like, because, like, growing up is like you didn't want any of that on your hand, and it's gotten to the point, like, every time I feel something on my hand, I always picture, like, the grossest thing, like, that's germs, it's disgusting, I want to get it off my hand right away.
Mhm.
It was just, I don't know, I didn't have a problem with the fish, with the horse head, but you thought it was worse than the soup, or...
Yeah, I thought it was worse than the soup.
Oh man, I disagree. Oh man. Because fishermen use disgusting tactics to get fish. Like,
Right.
the most rotten meat and whatever they can put in it, and they throw it out there, and it'll trap the fish quicker.
See, I eat fish that we catch, and it's like if we use a worm or a leech or like something.
Right, but if you go out and, like, you want to catch big game,
See, I don't eat that though, because
the
it grosses me out. I
the
don't
big
know.
fish.
Yeah.
Well, it's fun to catch them.
But
Being
how can it be fun if you're gonna like gag
deep
meat
sea
and like?
fishing, you use, like, the smelliest things, and usually what it is, it's a bigger fish, and you chop off half of it, hook it onto a big hook, and...
Okay, I think we should go to the next
All right.
changing room.
The changing room scene. I'll start with that one because I brought it up.
I don't remember what scene.
They're both, him and the girl are in the changing room, and then
Oh,
he
okay.
goes and just smacks his face into
Right.
into her vagina.
Yeah.
And she was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. No, she let it happen, and then she
Mhm.
was...
Well, we could kind of like add the spitting in the hand because
Just like the whole thing with the two of them, basically, like,
Yeah,
because
with...
they actually have sex later
Mhm.
on too. But they're like 16.
And then
But
the dad had sex with her. And
yeah.
then... I don't...
a lot of sex.
I just... The idea, like, it automatically brings me to pedophilia, because that's just what I picture, and it's just so wrong in my mind, because it's like, you're taking these young kids,
Mhm.
and it's, oh man. And I don't know why, maybe because it's against the law, and when you think of younger kids, you just think young and innocent. Like, I understand that sometimes those thoughts cross their minds, but to be able to exploit that, it made me a little uneasy. I'm the guy that watches Dateline to Catch a Predator all the time, so, and I'm like, yeah, take him to jail. But yeah,
How old was Oscar when?
They were
well,
both
he was
16, weren't they?
And a
16,
But
3-year-old.
in the movie?
but the actual
He
actor.
started out as a 3-year-old, but like he kept growing, but his body never changed.
Right. I get that, but like, how old do you think he was when that scene
Oh,
happened?
Oh.
Because when
Didn't
you
he say
think,
they
I
were
think
both
that was like
16?
really unusual behavior how he reacted to the situation.
Mhm.
Like, do you really think like a 6-year-old's gonna react like that to a naked girl? Like,
Right.
Or even when you think of like um middle school, you still don't think.
yeah.
Middle school, yeah. I don't. Even when you think about that, though, the kid was just so young, and that's... And I know you're supposed to have that suspension of disbelief, like, okay, he's 16, but I still understand, and I'm still consciously thinking that actor is not 16.
Yeah.
And this is happening, and I'm just shocked. I guess I'm shocked. It's tough to really pinpoint why that's an idea in people's heads, because why is that important to people? But I think it's because they're young children, and children in our minds shouldn't be subjected to that, or like know about that, even though they might. And I think that's why it made me sickened, because I didn't want to think that could happen.
I don't know, I not always thought of it as like from the men's point of view, but as like from the women's. Like when she got pregnant, like that was her own relatives that she was having sex with. It's like you think of like the birth defects that her child could have, or like how much that could mess up a female's body,
Yeah.
even with relatives, and then not only that, but like how much it can mentally harm her.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know. You guys all took it from like the men's, like the guy's
Yeah.
point of view, which makes sense
Yeah. No. No.
Right.
That makes sense too. Yeah. That could. Jeez.
because like you can't put it back. Like in a sense, it kind of makes me think of rape
Yeah.
and like how much that messes up with society now. Like so you hear like someone got raped and they're like, oh, that's terrible. You know, like
But having to see it
yeah.
occur and then.
And to know like it's your own relative, which makes it
Yeah.
even worse.
No, I'd have to agree that that part of it, because that happened when the dad was having sex with her, and I was like, that's just. Oh man, I just didn't know. You just felt so helpless.
The worst part is like he got up and then he like blamed it on her, right?
Yeah.
Didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when Oscar walked in. Yeah.
Mhm.
I know, like that was my point of view because like even like her walking around and being in front of all the family, knowing that she's had sex with more than one person in the household, like how that can make her feel and how I just don't understand like how she was like fully functioning. Like you could tell things have changed, but I don't know if it was enough for everyone else around to notice.
Right. And that's kind of what made you just go, oh man, like I can't watch this. Like that's what. Yeah. I think this.
I think it's just because like I know a girl who was actually like raped by her father,
Mm,
and like the stuff that she goes through now and all of like the counseling and stuff she's gone through and like the fact that she can't even look at her dad anymore.
yeah, that
Like
would be
she
tough.
wants nothing to do with her dad, and she was younger than 16 when it first started happening.
Hmm. So right away, yeah, you go
Right.
to that experience and you just.
You
Cause
like
like when I saw it, like I wanted to turn away. I was like, I did. It is
and it's one of those things where
rough.
like you hear about it but you always tell yourself like, "Oh, that won't happen here,
Yeah.
that won't
And
happen
now
here."
you're in the seat watching it, and it's happening, and there's nothing you can do,
To
and
stop
you're
it.
trying, and you're running all these ideas through your head, and that makes me want to turn away because I don't want to believe that it happens.
I literally like put my head down during that movie so I didn't have to look or pay attention to it or whatever.
That's yeah, that's rough stuff. And the licking of the pop rocks
Yeah,
thing.
that was just I'm not gonna lie, the first time I saw it I laughed, but then it kept happening and I was like, this is weird. And
Yeah.
it's just for the simple fact of like you don't.
The whole back goes back to that backwash idea. Just
Right.
ew.
And like she put it in, or Oscar put it in her belly button.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
I just don't like. Would someone actually react that way if you poured Pop Rocks in their hand and then like added water to it or something? Like, would someone actually react the way that she did?
And it's not
I
only
don't
that, but
think
like,
that you would.
but does it make a difference that like one time Oscar licked it out of her hand and then like one time she did herself? Like, in a sense, was she like trying to get herself? I don't know.
I don't know.
It's
That's
just weird.
it was. And like, what made that? I like to me right away went right back to the germs thing, and that's what made me gross out about it. But there's so many gross things we do. I just think that I was raised that certain things were absolutely disgusting. As your child, you were told, always wash your hands, and always do this and always do that. So then when you're thrown out to the extremes of this movie, it's like everything you were told not to do is happening. Like,
I think another thing that like made it awkward or bad or disgusting, whatever you want to call it, was just the fact like seeing Oscar in that 3-year-old's body.
mm,
And like that's what I pictured him like I always pictured him as a 3-year-old and it's like why is he doing that? Like your mind is not even developed at 3 years old. You should.
right, right. It was hard to get that suspension of belief that he was older.
So the whole Pop Rocks, like he did that, and I'm like, you're 3, no.
Yep. Pedophilia. And children should be innocent.
The last one that I have down was when like the hiding under the skirt had happened like at the beginning and then it was like
Oh
way at the
my
end.
god,
But when it
yeah.
happened at the beginning, like the first scene that I remember was this and like how he came running and he was like hiding underneath her skirt and the guys came up and started talking to her and it's like he was doing stuff.
Right.
Mm.
So it was like that was at her him like repaying her for hiding him.
I don't
Or did he like
know.
rape her or what? Like
That was
I mean, it was a good hiding
no,
spot.
she like they walked away together though, remember?
yeah.
So like I don't
I
think
wonder
she
if
was
she knew
mad.
who the guy was
I
beforehand.
I don't think she did. It was
But that
just
like that was my reaction is like him doing that to her. Like she obviously wanted it and then that was him repaying
yeah,
her
and
for it.
then like when Oscar near the end kept going on, would go under there, and I was like, no, 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 because I'm now picturing Oscar gonna do that, and I'm like, no, no, that's your
Right.
grandma, that's disgusting, but he didn't, but it
Or
was
it was
just,
even like there was like 3 or 4 layers until you got like to the
Yeah.
way bottom and he would
yeah,
like pull up one
they put up
and
the
then he
hot
just
brick in
kept
there, and then they, yeah.
and he just like kept going and I don't know.
I, I found that weird because like,
It's your grandma.
I get it's a good place to hide, like no, in the beginning of the movie,
Right.
I get a good place to hide. But I found it so wrong. It's like you don't know her and you just did that. Like that's just weird. The strangers, I I wanted that one more made me laugh, and then I was more disgusted. I didn't want to turn away because you didn't see anything. But the fact that disgusted me was you're a stranger and she's been working in the fields all day and
Do you think like she was harvesting potatoes, right?
yeah.
Do you think that had any like correlation? Like do you think it was potatoes for a certain reason?
I don't know, but the time he talks about potatoes, remember he goes on that rant about potatoes? Another form of romanticism. He made that potato, it was great. Check one off. But I don't know what the whole potato thing was about other than
See, I was like trying to think of like that had any maybe it does cuz like
it,
later
I mean it might, but
cuz it did what weren't they just like taking the potatoes right out of the basket and just like eating them?
yeah, and then the
Yeah.
guy went on that whole tangent about how the potato was so great and he made this potato and it's work of art and all this. That was a little bit of the romanticism coming out again. But yeah, what made you grossed out about the under the skirt thing?
It's just that it's wrong, like that, and he's a little boy.
Yep.
There were so many things wrong with the movie.
Yeah.
The whole movie just creeped me out.
Pedophilia is gross. I think so. Ultimately, what we've determined is we've been raised in a world of social norms, and germs are gross, pedophilia is gross, incest is gross, and they just took all of those things to the extreme. And when they did that, it made us all sickened and wanted to turn away. But we were in the class and we're kind of forcing to watch it, and watching it break all the social norms made me grossed out. But as we talked about with like a third world country, if you weren't necessarily raised or the social norm has changed, the environment has changed, it might not have been as gross. So it's almost like we've created these ideas of germs, pedophilia, incest, and in some places, it doesn't matter.
That's just how it is.
It's just an ideal we've created that we always want to stray from, and then when we see it, we want to be because we were taught that it was wrong, we are disgusted by it. And a lot of times too, we'll see it, and we may see that it is wrong, and maybe we want to tell other people, but other people don't see it as wrong, and they may not see the same effects that we see it.
I know one thing going in like to that movie called The Tin Drum. I never would have expected any of what happened in that movie.
Mhm.
So for all that to happen, it was like that was a shock to the system itself. Like
For sure. Well, I think it's been a good discussion. I think we brought out a lot of different important ideas, and I think we shall conclude. So, goodbye, Oscar, and thank